Hey guys, that was a rendition of a cool lick that I just come across in the style of probably Paul Gilbert. I think he did a little bit of something like this on either his Terrifying Guitar Trip video. I think it was that one actually. It was probably that one. But I come up with this lick just a couple nights ago and was fiddling around with it, and I thought, well, I need to do a lesson on that. That's cool. So this is a cool little lick if you want to use in blues, if you want to use in faster playing and things like that. And I recommend experimenting with different pickup settings. You can use, for a more twangy sound, you can use the, I'm just going to call these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And that's the 5-way switch. So we're in the 4th position, which are these 2 pickups here. It gives it that more twangy. Gives it that nice Telecaster sound, or you can go all the way to the 5th position for the bridge pickup. Okay, and then you can get, you know, the faster stuff. But I think I've got a little too much distortion on here. It makes it kind of mess up when you put too much on. Okay, so the cool thing is the first lick, if you can get that down, it's the same picking pattern for the rest of it. Now the only difference is with the first lick you're using these 2 fingers, and with the other lick you're changing position, so you kind of have to use the pinky in this. Now if you use this it would be kind of weird, so I definitely recommend using the pinky because that'll help you build your stamina and the strength in your hands. So the fingering kind of changes. So let's start once again, and before I forget, make sure you check out the little cog icon in the bottom right hand side. You should be able to speed up or slow down this video in that. So definitely check that out. If I'm going too fast for you, check that out. I'm using once again the Ernie Ball heavy gauge Everlast fluorescent pick so that you can see the pick strokes. Here's how this would work. We're in the key of E. And the cool thing about this is we can use this in any key, because now once we change this in the fingering here, I can use this in the key of G. And all I'm doing is I'm going from E, a version of it, and then I'm going to A, the A version, then I'm going to B, and then I'm going back to E. Okay, so that's the chord progression we're following. So we have to follow the minor pentatonic scale with a little bit of, you know, bluesy notes added in. So basically this is position 1 of the minor pentatonic. Okay, so all we do is we're going to go from the 2nd, or the 3rd and the 2nd, and we're going to do a pull off, and then we're going to land our finger back on the 3rd fret of the B string. So we start with the E, it's a downstroke, and then another downstroke on the B, and so what it's going to be is so it's a down and a down up. Like that, 2 downstrokes, and then we're going to put this finger, the 2nd finger, back on the 2nd fret of the E string, and that's the upstroke, and that's going to be another pull off to an open E string. So that's probably the first part of this lick. Okay, let me do the whole thing so I can remember what's going on here. Okay, so the first half is we're going to two more pick strokes, and then we're going to come back down and hold this note, and then go back to the B E string. Okay, so that's the E string part. And then from there, we're going to do the same thing between the E, the B, and the G strings. So we see a pattern emerging here. A hammer or pull off, 2 picks, and another pull off. That pull off happens on the upstroke. and then 2 pick strokes. Okay, so this is a little bit of what I've talked about earlier in a bunch of other videos for bluegrass, and that is backtracking. That down up, coming back to a previous note, coming back to that note, back to this note, back to that note. So we're backtracking along the whole time. Now, whether you want to sustain that or not is up to you. So it's kind of hard not to sustain that. It's a little easier when you get down to the higher notes here because you kind of mute it a little bit more. And then we're going to do this last part. This is where the note changes. We're not going to go back on the 3rd fret. We're going straight to the 2nd fret. And that's where it gets tricky, is because I'm already wanting to go back to the 3rd fret, and that's, you don't need to do that. Okay, so the picking so far, let's watch the picking, okay? Okay. So we got 2 downs, up, down, up. So 2 downs and an up, down, up. And we start all over. Now this is where it's going to be a little different. We're going to have the middle finger here doing a bar. So it's the same picking. A quick up after that 2nd down. Okay, so if we took out some of those notes, that's what it would sound like. And then we're going to come back down. So it's a down, up, down. So we're going to bar and then release the bar. And to do that, my finger kind of has to collapse. Notice that finger. The knuckle here, the first knuckle after the fingernail, collapses. So my finger is still pressed down on the D string at 2nd fret so that it can pivot right back up to that. And then after that, it's another upstroke. Open G, hammer on. So on that open G, we're going to upstroke with 2 notes. 1, 2, and then back down on that E. You can play that whole E chord if you need to. If you're not going to play the whole E chord, then just land back down on the middle finger. If you're playing the E chord, you'll have to do it with the ring finger because that's the complete E. Okay, so here's the whole thing slow. Now watch the picking again. Now I can hit that note and then hit the chord after that. Okay, or you can just leave that. And then the next thing is going to be the same thing. Okay, so this is like the 2nd part. Now we're going to come and concentrate on the A part because we're going to follow the chords and do the same thing. This is going to happen between the 5th and the 8th frets, and this is the pattern. We're just going to use that same shape all the way across like we did here. So that's 8, 7, 5 all the way down to the G, and then that note is going to be different. It's going to be on the 7th fret. So when we get to the D string, we got to start with the 7th fret. So here's the same thing. Now this is a little tougher because that ring finger tends to get in the way of the pinky. So the fingering is a little different. You have to figure out what works with you. With me, my pinky tends to bar and sound like this. And that's, you don't want that. You want it to sound consistent. So it's kind of like the ring finger has to release in order to get that sound clearly on the E string, and not make the pinky collapse here and bar those two fingers, or those two strings. So we're starting with that same pull off, except now our first finger is taking care of where the nut was. And this is what we call a closed position because we're not using any open strings. And that means that we can translate this to any key. We're starting in E, but if we wanted to start in G, we'd do the same thing up here. And then we'd move on up the chords for C and for D. Okay, so but back in the key of E, we're going to the A shape here, the A minor pentatonic scale with a little bit of bluesy stuff, chromatic tones thrown in between. Now, a lot of times you'll get, some open B strings or whatever. What I recommend for that is going ahead and now for this, I'm barring right here. Okay, so I'm barring these top two fingers, or these top two strings, the E and the B. Now, a lot of times I don't bar. Sometimes I just come down to this. That way I can have the same feeling across all three strings. But it's probably better to bar that because that can act as a mute. If you don't bar it, then you'll want at least the tip of your finger touching that B string while you're holding down the E string to kill that note. Now, what you can do is lift off that pinky when you come down and hit that open E, so that you don't have this that dissonance there. Now, you couldn't do that with this one. Yeah, I guess you could. But if you did that, that kind of, lifts that string and it kind of causes it to sound open, which we don't want. And once again, we're doing that bar here when we get to the end. Same picking pattern, down, down, up, down, up. Once again, same shape on the G. It may sound weird, but it's supposed to. That's a little bit. That's the flatted fifth, which gives us a bluesy sound. But if you leave that, it kind of sounds weird. Now, once we get a G, it's going to be the same thing as it happened up there on the E section. We're going to come down here on the D, and instead of barring with the middle finger like we were on the E, we're going to bar with this ring finger. So this will get us good practice. Once again, we're using that D string as that pivot, flattening our finger, coming back to that D string. And then this time the first finger is still holding the G string, and that's where this is going to come in, where the nut was holding this. We're going to do it here. I keep wanting to hit the 7th fret, and I need to go to the 8th fret with that pinky there, at least until I get done with the G string. So it's the same thing. That's something good to practice right there. So that's a cool little lick there that you've heard many times in different blues songs. So once again, really slow. Now let's do the two together. Let's do that again. You're going to hear the chord changes here. Now, for the next one, we're going to the B, and all that is 2 half steps higher. So we have 1, 2 frets higher. The same thing. We're going to have a 4 fret span here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's going to be between. We're going to start this on start our first finger on the 7th fret. So we're going from the 5th fret, slide it to the 7th fret, and our pinky is going to land on the 10th fret. Okay, so same thing. Then come up here. And it's the same exact thing. I'm not even going to go over the technique because I just explained it back here. If you need to go back over the technique, rewind it. But I would suggest getting the A down first, getting this technique down with a closed position first before even moving on. Because once you move on, it's just going to be the same thing. Now, instead of coming back down and ending with this E, we're going to come all the way to the 12th fret and end with the higher E, okay, the higher E. And this is going to be E pentatonic as well. So it's going to be the same exact pattern once again. Now we're going to go from the 12th fret to the 13th or the 15th fret here. Okay, and we're doing the same exact pattern. Now you'll notice as you move up, the frets are getting closer together, okay? So we got these wide span here, and then we get a little closer, and then we get it a little bit closer. We don't really notice it until we get up here. Then the frets are really close. So you got to practice trying to keep that pinky there. Don't automatically switch to this, because then that's going to get your whole flow off. You know, you want to do the pinky, and especially once you get into higher areas, you want to keep the same shape as much as you possibly can. So let's do the same thing on the E. Now notice as I come down, I just now notice this. I think I do this without barring because I'm having to move 3 times. Once I hit that first note, my first finger comes up and, well, it releases that E string. Once I start the next pattern, it releases the E and comes down to where I need it. Okay. And we can go back to like the 4th position. We can come back all the way to the top position here, position number 1 of the pickup. Which sounds a little more, you know, fat sounding, a little bit more of a shreddy tone. But just for clarity, it sounds good on the bridge pickup so that you can hear all the notes in the articulation. You can hear all the articulation in between the notes. And what I would suggest is really looking out for, I just heard an open B string ring when I looked at that pinky. Like when I did that. Now, once again, you're going to want your tip of your finger hitting there if possible. When you lift off that note, you can't really hear it. Or just don't lift off the pinky at all, but if you do that, you'll have the open strings ringing again. Or the strings ringing into each other. We don't want all that noise. So we want to make sure the tip of our first finger, if we're not barring, is touching that B string. So notice when I pick up that pinky, you don't hear that. If I had that open string not muted, you'd be hearing this. So my first finger is pressing the E while the tip of it's touching the B, and we're lifting off and you can't hear it. Same thing when you transition to the B, make sure the tip of your first finger is touching that G string. So the whole thing together. Just hit a little thing at the end there. Now, before that, between each one, you can hit the chord. And I'm going to speed this up just to give you an idea. Okay. So we can either use the whole chord here or use this minor to give it more of a bluesy sound. Or you could take and bar this and use your middle ring finger where it lands there and make sure that you're barring that D string as well. because that gives that 7th sound. So obviously I haven't practiced it a lot, but you practice something like that and that will really, really get your finger coordination together, get it down, and it will get your picking coordination down. Like I said before, if you're having problems watching this and following along, maybe you'll want to go back and rewind at the start and slow it down using that little cog down here in the bottom right. Slow things down to about half speed. Pay attention to this hand first, and then you may want to pay attention to your my picking hand. Watch over it a couple times with my picking hand so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on, all right? That really, really helps your learning is when you slow things down like that. So this has been the cool blues lick, whatever I decided to title it, for pentatonic and a little bit of bluesy, you know, chromatic tone stuff happening. The cool thing is you can use this little lick in just about anywhere. Now you can use that. Just think, you got all these notes here that you can use. Now, once again, slow that down if you want to learn how I did all that. I was just noodling around with those patterns. I learned that a lot of that from Paul Gilbert's Guitars from Mars #2, where basically he goes over blues stuff and how to make blues sound more, you know, shreddy and fast, and he uses that example of using just one shape on 3 strings and all the stuff he can completely, you know, blaze through a lot of good licks in that. So that's been the lesson for this time. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to learn more about playing in blues, the blues genre, and learning how to figure out these scales, check out my website at www.secretsoftexasbluesguitar.com, where you can find my course on all that I know up to that point about playing blues scales and playing the scales that are particularly popular with blues and important to blues, as well as knowing what licks to play within those scales. For example, this was box 1, and there's a ton of more box 1 licks in that course. You definitely need to check that out. It's a really, really informative course that I came up with a few years back and still applies today. I still use all that stuff in my playing today. So thanks so much for watching. Check that website out, and check out the links below in case there's anything else that I might have left out and haven't said. And you have an awesome, wonderful day. Keep playing guitar. Keep getting better at it. And don't give up. It's a little tricky at first, but you just keep working at it. Play it slowly, and it'll come to you. All right. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, God bless.